Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Diane Griffin. I'm Assistant Director of the Awards Program with GFOA. Excuse me, and we're very excited to present our awards management system to you today for training. We spent a lot of time developing it. We're really excited about it and are looking forward to working with you in it. So I'm going to basically turn it over to Allison Young, who is from Laserfish, which is the vendor who we worked with to develop this system. She and her colleague will walk us through the volunteer portal and give you pretty much everything you need to know to access the system, to register, and then be able to get in and view and complete your reviews. So she'll tell you some of the logistics about how the call will work, but I'm happy to be here with you today and hope you're as excited about it as we are. So Allison, I'll give it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Diane. Welcome everyone. We're very excited to conduct the training today. Today we're going to be covering how to interact with the system as a volunteer reviewer. So in particular, we're going to be covering how to apply to be a volunteer reviewer if you're not already one in the system, how to navigate the repository for where your documents are going to be located, and then ultimately how to receive and complete a review within the award management system. So as mentioned, my colleague Will is going to be actually conducting the training, but I do want to say, because this is a training event, you may have noticed that there is no audio for the attendees, but we do have an active Q&A session. So we definitely encourage you to write any questions you have throughout the training in that Q&A section. Either myself or one of the GFOA team members will address it. If it's related to something that Will is currently training on, I'll also chime in and have him maybe dive into a little more detail in what he's currently showing. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Will.
All right, thank you, Allison. So hi everyone, my name is Will. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to talk about the volunteer application form first. Sorry, give me just a second. I'm having a little trouble sharing. Allison, would you be able to pass me the ball so I can present my screen here? I think I might need to get presenter rights over.
Yes, one second.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Allison, if you could confirm that everyone can see it.
I can see it on my end.
Okay, perfect. All right, so like Allison said, I'm going to first talk about the SRC or volunteer application form. This is where you're going to go to first to apply to be a volunteer reviewer within this new system. And then I'm going to go into actually having volunteer review tasks assigned to you, and we'll go over those forms to show you what needs to be filled out, what type of information needs to be filled out there, and then we'll talk about other things like applying for a volunteer review extension request, things like that. I'll go into those as well later down the line. I'll talk about the repository as well, actually viewing your documents that are related to the CAFRs that are assigned to you. Okay, so if everyone can see my screen, I'm looking now at the SRC application form. This is where you're going to go to first. We're going to provide a public link that you'll be able to access. And when you get to the form, you're just simply going to see CAFR Special Review Committee application form, and then you'll have a place to enter your personal IMIS ID. So you'll simply enter the value there, and there's a couple different things that can happen as a result of me entering an IMIS value here. First off, you may see an error message asking you to contact GFOA support. That will occur only if, for whatever reason, when you type in your IMIS ID here, Laserfiche can't talk to or isn't able to retrieve your information from IMIS. So what happens is when I put a value into this IMIS ID field, we do a lookup to IMIS to grab all your information, like your first name, your last name, your email address, your employer, and populate it into fields that will show in a second. But if we, for whatever reason, can't find that information, then you'll get a message saying, please contact your administrator. So I'm going to type in just some random values here that is invalid. This is just an invalid IMIS ID. It's going to say, cannot retrieve IMIS ID. Please contact membership@gfoa.org. Another reason why you might see this is if you're applying a company IMIS ID instead of your personal IMIS ID, you could get that message as well. But if you see this, there's something wrong with your IMIS ID, there's something wrong with us being able to retrieve your information from IMIS. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a valid ID here. It's actually one that I made up, so it's not a real IMIS ID, but going to enter that value into the IMIS ID field. And when you change the value in this field here, just make sure you click off of the field in order for the change to register. So if you can see, I put my IMIS ID in here, but it's still saying cannot retrieve. Just make sure you click off of it to actually register the change to allow the form to contact IMIS again and try to get your information. If I click off of it, I should see my information populate here. So if you have a valid IMIS ID that you entered, you're going to see a message here that just says, please confirm all the fields with the gray background. They're read-only. These are the fields that were actually retrieved from IMIS. So this is just a fake user that I created, Alan Apple, and fake employer and street address. So I retrieve that information. This is my actual email address because I want, when we do these subsequent tests, I want to make sure the emails are being sent to myself. So I have my email address here. But just confirm all the fields in gray that are not editable. Make sure those are all correct. If you have an issue with any of those, you can contact, again, membership@gfoa.org. But the other fields that won't be populated that you need to confirm are the ones with the red asterisk. That would be phone number. I'm just going to type in a random phone number here. And then I need to actually confirm my email address. So the email is actually what was retrieved from IMIS, but I just basically need to confirm if this value is correct simply by, if it is correct, copying the value into the confirm email field. You'll notice it's saying emails are not the same because I haven't populated the value into this confirm email field. So I can go ahead and do that, and then we should see that message go away, and I should be able to submit at this point. So everything looks good there. Before I move on, I did want to mention one other option that you might see after entering your IMIS ID. Let's say you've already applied to be a volunteer reviewer and your account has been created. If for whatever reason you came back here and put in your IMIS ID again, you would see a message saying your account has already been created. So I believe this is correct. I think I created this dummy account before as well. Okay, so this is an account, another fake IMIS ID account that's already been created within Laserfiche. So if you within the system, so if I put in my IMIS ID and I already have account created, it's going to tell me the account has already been created. And you have two options here to go to your reviewer inbox or your update volunteer information form to update any of the information that you already put in when you applied. I'm not going to talk about these right now, but I will touch on these later so you'll know what these mean. If I go to my reviewer inbox, I'm going to see any volunteer review tasks that were assigned to me. So it's basically just going to redirect you there because you already have an account, and it'll make you log in first before you do that. But those are basically what these two options mean. But obviously we'll go over the inbox and volunteer information forms later, but just wanted to show what would happen if you went back to this form for whatever reason and put in your IMIS ID for an account you've already created. So those are three options.
Here, Will, because we had a question in the Q&A that basically, what if you are already a reviewer with GFOA? I just wanted to address that for everyone. So if you are already an active volunteer reviewer with GFOA, When we go live next week, we will be emailing you out your logins for Laserfiche automatically with a username and a temporary password that you can then set to the password of your choice going forward. So you'll already be set up in the system if you are an active volunteer review.
Okay, thanks, Allison. So I'm going to put in my IMUS ID that I want to create an account for. So again, I had the same information populated here, and I've applied all of the required fields up here. I could put a position if I wanted, but now I need to fill out the types of governments that I'm willing to review, as well as the months I'm available to perform volunteer reviews. So I can select one or more of the government types. I'll just select the first three here. You have to select at least one, but it can be any or all. And then I need to specify which months I'm willing to review reports. If I select all months, I'm going to see this message come up here that basically is just confirming with me that if I select all months, then I could potentially receive a volunteer review any month of the year. So you may not receive a review for a certain month, but you are eligible to receive reviews for any month. So just expect that and know what that means. However, if I select specific months, it's going to give me all the months of the year to select. And again, I'll need to select one or more of these. If I try to go ahead and submit the form, it's going to say, it's going to give me a message saying I'm missing a required field. It's going to say values required here, as it would for any of the required fields that you forget to fill out. So I'll just say I'm available the first 4 months of the year, let's say. And then finally, I'll want to put in the named fiscal year of any financial reports that I've been associated with in the past. So I can apply that information. I'm going to leave those blank for now, but you'll want to add all those values, and I can click this add button and apply as many as I want and remove them. So you can apply one or more values here, set the values here. And then I can use this upload button if I want to upload any relevant documentation that I believe is relevant to the application. So I would do that just by clicking upload, and it's going to just navigate to your local drive where you can select any files to upload to this field. And if you upload anything, you'd see the upload at the bottom there, and you can click into it. But pretty straightforward upload button that you've probably seen before. And then finally, I need to apply a signature. So I've applied all the values I want, and I'm going to sign this. So I can either type my name in, or I can draw. I was going to type my name in here, or I'll use the fake name for the fake user that's being created here. And then I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And when I click submit, I should get a confirmation page that my my application's been received. And at that point, it will be sent off to GFOA to review, and I'll either get a rejection or approval decision to be a volunteer reviewer. And once that decision is made, I'll immediately receive an email saying whether or not my application was approved or rejected. If it was rejected, I will get a message in the email from GFOA as to why it was rejected. If it was approved, then I'll receive my credentials for logging into your inbox or into the repository to view any documents that are associated with the reviews that you're assigned. And I'll talk more about those later so you know what those are. But I'm going to go ahead and click submit, and I'll receive a confirmation page saying your application has been submitted. GFOA will review your application and let you know if you have been approved, like I said. I can download the application for my records if I want, or print or email it. That's also an option as well after you've submitted. Okay, now while we're waiting here, I'm going to go into the system and pretend to be GFOA and go ahead and approve this application so that the account gets created. So give me just a second. All right, so I went ahead and approved this. So we're gonna have to wait another minute, but you should receive an email. Make sure you go ahead and approve. Everything looks good. Okay, sorry, I'm doing this off screen just because this is not something that you all have to do. But I've acted as a GFOA person and just approved your application. So what I should receive in a few seconds here is an email with my credentials to log into forms to check to see if I have any reviewer tasks that are assigned to me, or log in to the repository where I can view the documents that are associated to any reviews that I'm assigned. So here's the email that I just received. Let me bring this up. Okay, so here we go. Here's the email I just received at 9:49, saying, "Hello, Alan Apple, your SRC application has been approved. Please use the following link to log into Laserfish Forms. The credentials listed below." So your username will always be just your personal IMS ID, and then your password that's provided in the email is just a temp password. When you go to log in for the first time, you'll apply this temporary password, and it's going to immediately prompt you to change it to something that you create yourself. So I'm going to do that right now. So if I click, I'm going to just copy this hyperlink, and I'm going to have to open a private window so that I'm already actually logged in this browser. I need to see the login page, so I'll show you what that looks like. So when you click on that link,
sorry, Will, I was just going to say, while you're getting logged in here, I just want to let everyone know, for those who are already active volunteer reviewers, you're going to get an email very similar to this automatically, basically saying your, the account management system account has been automatically created, and you'll have a username password just like this. So this will be your first steps in the system. You won't have to do the application, but you will receive an email and need to follow the steps that Will's about to show you.
Right. So again, when I receive my application approved email, I can use this link to redirect me to log in. And you're going to get this page here if you're logging in for the first time, or any subsequent times if you're logged out. But it's going to ask you for a username and password. And like I said, and as is stated in the email, your username is just going to be your IMS ID. And then your password is going to be, your temporary password is going to be provided in the email as well. So I'm just going to copy that and then put in my IMS ID and copy in the password here. And when I go to sign in, it's going to tell me to reset it with my own password. So your password has expired. Please provide a new one. So let me go ahead and make one up here and copy it in. It has to be 12 characters, but if you forget that, it'll let you know if you don't use a password that's at least 12. So let me copy this password in, make sure it's the same, and then we go ahead and click reset password. It says password changed successfully, please wait to be redirected. So you should get that message, and it's going to redirect you to your Laserfish Forms inbox, where you would see any review tasks that have been assigned to you. If you, obviously when you're signing in for the first time, or not necessarily if you're signing in for the first time, you won't see any. But if you sign in right when your account's created, you probably won't have reviews assigned right away. So when you log in for the first time, you're just going to see a blank inbox. So I guess I'll touch a little bit on this in a second, but just to go over your Laserfish Forms inbox, when you log in, you're going to see your team tasks section, which is mainly what you're going to be working within. And then if you have any tasks assigned to you, you'll see it under Open Tasks. If you saved a draft, let's say you opened a volunteer review and applied some grades, but then want to come back later and apply the rest of the grades, you can save the form as a draft. And in that case, it would, your drafts, your pending tasks, essentially, would be shown here. So mainly this is where you're going to be working within Open Tasks or drafts, because tasks will always be directly assigned to you. So these are the main two places where you will be working. The other thing I wanted to show is the repository where you can view all the documents associated with the CAPRs that are assigned to you. So these links will be provided, but and one thing I want to point out, this is our test environment. That's why the top bar is green, but when you log in, the top bar will be blue, in case you're wondering about that. But I'm going to now go to the repository where I can view all the documents. Right now, I'm not going to have any because I don't have any CAPRs assigned to me. But let me log in there. Give it a second when you're logging into the repository for the first time. Okay, there we go. Okay, so when you log in, you're going to see this volunteer reviewers folder, and then you should see a subfolder for your names. This is Alan Apple's folder. And if I click into my folder, I don't see any information right now just because I haven't been assigned any CAPRs yet. But once you are assigned CAPRs, which I'll show in a second, you should see folders within your volunteer reviewer folder that are created for those particular entities. And then you'll see shortcuts to the specific documents that you have access to. So I will show that in a second once I assign myself a volunteer review task. Give me just a second. I'm going to send a volunteer review task off to this reviewer. Just a second.
And just while we're waiting on that, I just wanted to point out that when you get a review, you're also going to have access to the documents directly from the review form. So you don't always have to go directly to the repository. We just wanted to show you the structure there. And when you see the review form, we'll cover that.
Yep, that's a good point. So I'll show that in a second, but you will have buttons on the actual review form so that you can actually just click into those buttons and the documents will appear in another window or another tab, and I'll show that in a second. So before I do this, I'm about to assign this Alan Apple user a review. So before I do that, what should happen when you're assigned a CAPR to review is you're going to receive an email with the entity name saying you've been assigned a volunteer task for review, and it should provide you a link directly in your email that you receive saying you can use this link to access the review task. However, if you choose to just log into your inbox, you should see that task appear automatically. So I'm actually going to show that. I just assigned the volunteer task to this reviewer. It does take a minute. So we didn't, oh, okay, it didn't take that long. But you'll notice here, I just got a volunteer review confirmation task that arrived in my inbox. However, like I said, I should also have received an email that was sent to my email inbox. You don't have to be constantly monitoring your Laserfish Forms inbox. You can just wait to get an email and then address it at that point. It looks like I just received the email, so let me show you what that looks like. Here's the email I just received at 9:57 saying you've been assigned a CAPR application to review. Please use the link below to accept or reject the application assignment. And it gives me, in the body of the email, it will give me actually the name of the government, but I can click in to this link and open up the forms task where I have to, before I actually am assigned a CAPR for review, I basically have to say whether or not I accept it. So when I open this form, it just gives you like an accept reject button that you'll see in a second. And if I accept the application assignment, then I will actually be shown the volunteer review form. If I reject it, then it'll just go away. It'll be assigned to someone else. And then I won't have to do anything at that point. But just so you know, if I click this link here in the email, it would essentially be the same as clicking this volunteer review confirmation task in my inbox. These are going to open the same things. But just so you don't have to monitor your inbox all the time, you can just wait to receive an email and use this link. That's fine too. So I'm going to go ahead and use the link in the email. And actually, you know what? That is opening it not as this Alan Apple user, which I want to use. So let me just copy this hyperlink and paste it in here so that I'm logged in as this volunteer reviewer that I just created. Okay, so I used the link in the email. I'm still logged in as this Alan Apple person. And the first form you're going to see is a volunteer review confirmation form, which basically just the only things it'll tell you are when the review task is due. So you'll have a couple weeks to actually complete the volunteer review. So you can see my due date is 6/10 at 8:56. And it'll just give me the name of the government, state, and government member ID. And I can either just accept or reject. And like I said, if I click reject, it'll go away and I don't have to do anything else. This volunteer review will be assigned to another volunteer reviewer. If I click accept, it should redirect me to the actual volunteer review form. So I'm going to click accept, and I should be automatically redirected to the volunteer review form. Okay, so if you saw that, basically what happened is it navigated me to the actual volunteer review task and submitted the volunteer review confirmation form, and now I'm on the actual volunteer review task. A couple things to note when you're viewing any of your forms tasks. You have the Save Draft button in the top right. You can also actually it's not going to be shown at the bottom there. We have the Save Draft button at the top right. Like I said before, if you are in the middle of submitting a review, applying grades, you want to come back to it later, you can save as draft. And then after you save that draft, you'll have to go back in your inbox and you can find that draft in your draft section. And then you can reopen the task and continue working on it from there. So I just wanted to point that out. Another thing I wanted to point out in the government information section, again, you just get the name of the government ID, and this is your member ID here. But you have these two buttons that I referenced earlier that Allison was also talking about. These two buttons will open up the CAF reports and the response to previous year comments documents that the actual entity uploaded to their application form. So you can see what those look like. If I click into these, they're just dummy documents that I created, but I can show you what those are. So if I click into this, it'll open up a document in another tab as read only, and this is just again, like I said, a dummy document that I created, but the same would be true for the responses to previous year comments document if I click into that. Now, if I go back into my other tab here, which is the repository, I should see, sorry, I did that a little bit quickly, but I was logged in and had my folder open here, my Alan Apple folder open, and I clicked this refresh button in the top right if you didn't catch that. But when I click refresh, you'll notice that a subfolder was created within my folder. So since I was assigned a volunteer review task, I should now have shortcuts to those same documents I opened here in the volunteer review task. I'll actually have shortcuts to those within my volunteer review folder in the repository. If you want to get to them that way, you can do that as well. So I'm going to click through here, and there are a bunch of subfolders, but basically it's by entity. And then finally, I've run a couple tests here, which is why you see some duplicates. So I need to clean this up a little bit. But you'll see the shortcuts to the application form, as well as the prior year comments documents. So I can click into these. But you'll notice that whenever you're assigned a review task, you see the documents here, shortcuts to the documents here under your reviewer folder. And then, but again, you can always access the documents from the actual review task as well. So that's one thing to note with the government information tab. The next tab is the review tab, where you're going to apply all your grades for the different sections. So if I scroll through here, it just has different rows for the different section numbers. I could scroll through and see all of them. And I have a grade and a comment field for each of these sections, so I can apply values to one or all of these. And if I select the grade, I can select proficient or needs improvement, and I can apply a comment to any of these. And this is kind of what I said before, where if you're moving through these and only finish half, you want to save as a draft, come back to it later, you're certainly able to do that. If you save as draft, it'll just close out and come back up, and I'll show that in a second. But before I apply any grades, I do want to point out the vote and extension request page. Let's say, if you remember what I said before about the due date, ours is June 10th at 8:56. So you're given a couple of weeks to submit this volunteer review form. But let's say you won't be able to submit this by June 10th. I can actually apply for a 7-day extension on my due date. And I can do that by going into the task and requesting a review date extension on the vote page. So, and again, the two options here, you can either make an award decision or request an extension. I'm going to request an extension and then say 1-week extension. I also have the ability to reassign the capper. So let's say you just changed your mind and you didn't actually want to do this volunteer review. You went to the confirmation page and said you did, but then you changed your mind. And actually, you're not going to be able to complete this by the due date. I'm just going to reassign it to somebody else. If you click reassign and then submit the volunteer review form, the task will go away and it'll be reassigned to another volunteer. So that's one way you can just get rid of the task if you don't think you're going to be able to submit it. But let's say I wanted to apply for a 1-week extension on this volunteer review task. I would click 1-week extension, and I do have to sign the form before submitting. And I'm going to click submit. And what's going to happen is a task we send off to GFOA, and they'll have to deem whether or not your extension should be granted. If it is granted, then you'll receive another email immediately after GFOA makes their decision with basically another link to this volunteer review task. And then you reopen it, and you'll notice that the due date will be 1 week after June 10th. If you're rejected and GFOA decides to reject your extension request, then you'll get an email saying it was rejected, and then the volunteer review will just go to somebody else, and the task will no longer be in your inbox. So I'm going to show what that looks like really quick. I'm going to apply for a 1-week extension and click submit. And you'll notice I'm redirected to my inbox here. I just submitted that task, so I have no volunteer review task that I have to submit anymore because a task went off to GFOA for approval. And on my other monitor here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So give me just a second. I'm going to accept the extension request, and I'll show you how an email is sent back to the volunteer reviewer. And then you'll also see the task pop up again here once I do that. So just a second. Okay, just approved the extension request. So if you look at the inbox here, you should, in a few seconds, notice that task pop back up in my inbox. So there we go. So if you saw that, our volunteer review task, this entity is back in my inbox. And the other thing you'll want to note is in the due date column here, you can see that it's now June 17th instead of June 10th. So my 7-day extension was granted. Now I have a new due date to complete the review by. I should, however, have received an email. Let me see. That's not the one. Just a second. That's the old one. Let's see if it came through yet. Yes, here we go. So here's the email I just received after my extension was granted. Oh, wait, that is the old one, right? Oh, yeah, this is the old one. Looks like the email hasn't quite come through yet. I'll give it another second, but when it comes through, I'll show you the email. But anyway, the review has come back into my inbox. So if I were to be logged in, I would have noticed that. But I could also just wait for to receive the email that my extension was granted, and then just use the link in the email to get back to this task. But while we're waiting for that email to come in, I'm going to go ahead and just reopen the volunteer review task with the updated due date. It's a week later. I'll just see the same exact task that I saw before. And I can go into the review tab now and apply all my grades. So I can apply any values that I want here, apply any comments throughout all the different sections. So after I'm done applying all those values, I'll just want to move on to the vote page and then make an award decision. It's simple, yes, no, an award should be granted or an award should not be granted. So if I want to grant the award, I'll just click this option. And again, I have to sign before submitting. And I can go ahead and submit the volunteer review decision. One thing to note, any grades I apply on the review tab, these will be visible by any GFOA reviewers that review the CAFR application in the future. So they should be able to see all these values after you've applied and given your decision. So they will be able to see those values. And I can go ahead and click submit if I think an award should be granted. If I don't think it should be granted, I would just say an award should not be granted, then apply a reason for rejection. This field is required, so I do have to apply a reason if I don't think an award should be granted. If I leave this blank and try to submit, it's going to tell me a value is required, so I need to apply a reason here why the award should not be granted. And again, I'll have to sign and just click submit, so I can use either of those options. And I think that's all I wanted to cover on the volunteer review task. Let me show saving a draft real quick so you can take a look at that. So I'm going to apply a couple comments here and a couple grades. So let's say I want to come back to this later. I can use the Save Draft button in the top right. So I'll click Save Draft. And Forms will tell me that the task has been saved as a draft. It's going to reload it for me, but if you want to just close out of it, you can go ahead once it's been saved as a draft. And actually, so yeah, if you view your drafts inbox here, you'll see the draft that was created. But it'll still show under your open tasks here. So you'll just notice that there's a draft message appended to the end of the task name. That's how you know you saved a draft. And then if I click back into it at any point, say I come back to it in a couple of days, I should be able to see that all of my changes were kept here. So all my comments and all my grades for these first three sections were kept, and I can just continue on with my other grades and then go ahead and submit. One other thing I actually do want to mention, you remember we applied for an extension request before. So I've been granted my one-week extension. The due date is now June 17th instead of June 10th over here. But if I go back and try to request another due date extension, it's not going to let me do that. I'm going to have this one-week extension radio button disabled, and I'm going to have a message saying you've already been granted a one-week extension. I could still go ahead and get rid of the volunteer review and assign it to somebody else and have it automatically assigned to somebody else. So I can still select this option, but I can't apply for another one-week extension after I applied for one before. So that's just another thing to note. But I think I'm going to go ahead and make my decision, say an award should be granted, apply my signature, and go ahead and submit. Just trying to double check to make sure there's anything I didn't want to cover. But I'll go ahead and do that. Allison, there are no other questions about the task, right? Once I submit, I don't have another one queued up, so I won't be able to get back into it. But
no, the only questions that came up were about if a reminder email would go out if you're approaching the due date. And we will send an email out a week prior to the due date of each task, just as a reminder. Also, at that point, you will have the option to request an extension, as Will showed you. So if you do get the due date reminder email and you realize that you're not going to be able to get to in a week, that's totally fine. You'll be able to request the extension at that point.
okay, yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, there'll be a reminder email. And then also, let's say you get the reminder email, but you still missed the due date. if the due date passes and you haven't addressed the task yet, it's going to be automatically removed for your inbox. So there's no action that has to be done on your part. If the due date is expired, it's going to just be removed from your inbox and automatically distributed to somebody else. So that's what happens if you miss your due date. Otherwise, I think that's it. I can go ahead and submit, but basically what's going to happen, I'm going to leave it open, but if I submit, it's simply going to be removed from my inbox, and I'll have no pending tasks left to address, and I'll basically at that point just wait for my next volunteer review task to be sent to me. Of course, an email, but also pop up in my inbox here. All right. If there are no questions about that, the last thing I wanted to touch on was the volunteer reviewer update form. So in the initial application, and let me bring that up again. There's myself here. So the original application, actually, sorry, let me go here just a second. I'll just open up the reviewer update form. We'll apply a standard link to, or we'll give you a standard link for this if you just want to bookmark it. But if you go to the Start Process tab, you won't see all these processes. This is our test environment, so this is not totally accurate, but you will see this volunteer reviewer update process. If I start this, I will be presented with the volunteer reviewer update form. And this is the standard link you receive, just the volunteer reviewer update URL. But if I launch this form, I should see my information that I populated in the original application automatically populate into the fields here. More importantly, the government types I'm going to review. So if you remember, we said just the first 3 government types here. And then I said I was available for January through March. So let's say for whatever reason, I needed to change my availability, whether I'm available for more months or less, I can do that using their volunteer reviewer update form. And I can also change the types of governments that I'm going to review through this form as well. So again, I'm going to reload it, but so you can see what happens. You should see my values. Took a second to populate there. It's basically just looking to a database to grab that information about my user. But I'll have my member ID automatically here, and then based on that, it populates the rest of my information. So I can change any of these. So let's say I actually only want to review states. So I change that, and then let's say I am available all months now instead of just January through April. Again, it's going to give me this message saying, if you choose all months, you may receive a CAFR to review each month of the year, just to remind me. But I can change my availability, change my government types, and then again, I have to apply a signature. And once I do that and click submit, my information should be updated automatically. And if I were to launch this form again, which I'll show, I should see these new field values populate. So I haven't submitted the form yet. If I were to reload this again, I'm going to see my old values there. But again, I'm going to change this to just states. So I want to only address states now, and then I'm available for all months. Apply a signature, sign, and click submit. I should see a confirmation saying your form has been submitted. Again, I could download it. I should also receive it in an email with a PDF attached to the email, basically just saying what I submitted. By the way, I missed this, but my email for the application extension came through here in case you were curious. But you will get another email if you apply for an extension. But here's my email that I just received for the volunteer review confirmation or volunteer reviewer update. It basically just says my requested changes have been set based on the form I submitted, and then it has a PDF attachment of the actual form. Same as what's here, so I could either download it from here if I wanted to for my records, or I could just click into or save the PDF that's attached in the email that will be immediately sent to me. It just has that there with the new information that I populated. Now, if I go back to volunteer review update, I should see the new information there that I changed. Okay, so it loaded, and now I can see that I am set to only review states, and I'm available for all months of the year. So those changes were set there. That's how you can change your availability or the types of governments you're willing to review. That's relatively straightforward. I don't know if there are any questions about that in the chat, Allison, but I think
not at the moment. So just to address some of the questions that came up in case the rest of the attendees did not see them. There was a question regarding how a volunteer reviewer would see the final grading after GFOA processes the review. And we'll configure the system to send an email automatically to the volunteer reviewer with the final results of any review that you participated in. And then there was one other question about whether the chapters will remain in the completed tasks folder in forms. By default, the tasks will remain there for 3 months. However, the documents will always be in your repository folder. So if you do want to look back at ones that you participated in the past, you'll still have these links. And as you can see, it's broken down by the year. So in this case, it was a 2020 that for Will's example. But you'll be able to go back through previous years and view all of the chapters that you participated in.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, you'll be able to go back to this folder at any point and view the different chapters that you reviewed.
And Will, just while you're in the repository there, we did get a question if you could quickly revisit the process of how you accessed the repository folder.
Yeah, sure. So we'll give you a default link. It's going to be slightly different than this. This is our test environment. It'll basically just be lf.gfoa.org/laserfiche. But when you're logging in, you can go directly to the repository using this link. And you should, if you're not already logged into Forms, you'll be prompted to log in with your IMS ID and password. If you are already logged into Forms, you shouldn't have to log into the repository. It should be able to grab those credentials from Forms and just log you straight in. But when you log in, you're not going to have the folder structure expanded there. You're just going to see this volunteer reviewers folder. Actually, you're going to be presented with the root folder. So you're going to see volunteer reviewers, and then you just have to click through. The folder structure is by first letter, last name, and then your last first name, and then the fiscal years of the CAFRs that you reviewed, and then it goes through the entity names and their states. You have to click through a few folders, but then once you get into the entity name folder, it'll send you with the shortcuts for the documents that you were assigned. Again, there shouldn't be duplicates here, but it'll be directly correspond to the documents that, or at least for the CAFR report and the prior year comments documents, those are also in the volunteer review task and those buttons that we showed. But I can also click into the actual application form itself. I can actually show you what that is. It's fake data, but it's the actual application form, or at least what it'll look like, instead of the dummy documents that I uploaded.
And just while Will's loading, I just wanted to let everyone know there is a training manual that you can download from this training session. If you don't download it from the training session, it's also going to be made available on the GFOA website along with this training video. And that's going to have these links in the manuals.
Right. Any other questions about the inbox or any of the tasks or the repository at all, Allison?
So we do have a question, how many chapters would be assigned to each individual for review?
How many CAFRs you said?
Mm-hmm.
You should only be assigned one at one time. Anytime the volunteer review tasks are distributed, it's through an automated process. It can also be manually distributed by GFOA to volunteer reviewers, but for the most part, it's going to be an automated process where it basically goes through all the applications that are pending and then checks the volunteer reviewers to see who's available and who can review what government types, and then distributes them based off that. But if a reviewer already has a task assigned to them, they should not receive another one. So you should only have to address one at a time as currently configured.
All right, that's all we have right now. Thank you, Will.
All right, awesome, thank you. And I think that's all I had. I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't forget anything. Yeah, I think that should be it.
All right, well, I do want to open it up to any last questions that you may have, either interacting with the review tasks themselves or the repository. Will and I are standing by and can happily cover anything that you may want to dive into in a little more detail. So we did get a question is there a place to ask questions in this application? So currently we haven't implemented a way within the application to ask questions directly to the GFOA reviews associated with the CAFR, but of course they'll be available by email. Diane, I don't know if one of your team wants to address that one.
For right now, you can continue to use the SRC reviews email address, but we will take a look at possibly adding that into the system.
Perfect. And we did have a question, and I'll pass this one off to you too, is will the same system be utilized for the CAFR and budget award programs?
And the plan is to bring all of our award programs onto this platform. We're starting with the CAFR. I don't have a timeline for when the other ones will be brought on, but that is our plan. You should then also be able to use the same login. You'll just see different folders in the repository for the various different programs, and you'll get different task assignments once that is live.
And in terms of when this starts, we are slated to have this system live on June 1st. So next Monday is when we'll send out all of the logins for all existing active volunteer reviewers, and we'll also open up the application form for any new volunteer reviewers that would like to join the system.
And there was also a question, and we may also be able to add these as just kind of documents you can reference in the system, the checklist. Right now they're still on our website, but we can possibly add those in as just reference documents in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Are they just static documents?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. We can make those available to all the volunteer reviewers in the repository.
And then there was also a question regarding agencies uploading their CAFRs directly into the system. And yes, that is, all of CAFR applicants will now be required to upload their CAFR documents as well as prior year comments. So you'll have those, and that's how they're available to you electronically through this system.
Just getting back to that question about the checklist, they do get updated once every couple of years, or but it does get updated, but not necessarily static though.
We can update those too.
Mm-hmm. That's not a problem. So we have a question: when will CAFRs need to be uploaded to the system? So in terms of, if that's question, if I'm understanding, in terms of the applications, those are also being opened up on June 1st to the entities submitting applications for the CAFR on June 1st. It's going to be a full external go live. So both external reviewers and the applicants themselves are going to have access to the system as of next week. Any CAFRs that have already been submitted for this fiscal year are already in the system and have been are going through processing now.
I think we also wanted to mention that for folks who have already applied, even though you didn't apply through the system, they'll probably be getting your results through the system because we are using the system to process and track the results.
Yes, that is correct. I think we faded out a little bit there, but to confirm, if an application this year is already in the system or was submitted prior to our go live last week, we are still processing them within the system. So upon final grading, the access to the resulting award package will be provided through Laserfiche automatically, and the links will be sent out through email. All right, any other questions from anyone on the line? Okay, there's one question that came in. It says, many times I've reviewed CAPR's 3 prior year comments are not included with the submission. In these cases, I just get responses, but not the original comments. Is there any way we can ensure that the original comments will be included?
Yes, we will make a copy of the prior year comments if they're not included in the response. We'll need to take a look at how we do that for volunteer reviewers. Right now, internally, there's a different form. So yes, we will make those available to you so you can see the original comments.
Okay, we had another question come in here that will updates about new GASP standards or points of emphasis be available through the portal for the reviewer's benefit.
The technical information that GFOA makes available is generally through our publications. Excuse me. So the Government Finance Review often has articles with regard to new GAAP, as will the subscription service to our new GAFR, the Financial Reporting, or the Blue Book. So both of those will be means by which folks can keep up to date, and of course we will often offer our GAAP update each year. So those are the same vehicles through which we encourage folks to currently keep their GAAP knowledge up to date, and those will be available as they have been in the past.
Great, thank you. So we got another question. Will I be able to see my comments that I submitted so I can compare them to the final comments when they come out? So yes, you will always have your comments available, at least for the first 3 months in your completed tasks. So you can always look at the comments you sent. When we have the final comments, we'll send an email when those are available with final comments and grading so that you'll be able to compare them. All right, we have a question that asks, why can't all reference materials be included here? Then I'll ask that one over to your team.
So you're saying those that are subscription based is what we're looking for?
Yes.
Michelle, do you,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
question was, why can't reference materials, those that are subscription-based, be available here?
It's just not the, unfortunately, this repository is not designed to be a reference database. So those will be available on GFOA's website. And of course, GASB always makes their literature available on their website as well.
All right. Anyone else have some last questions that you would like to run by us? Give it about one more minute here and see if anything else comes in. In the meantime, I will reiterate that, if you do think of any questions at all, certainly reach out. We're happy to address them. We will be putting together a summary of all the questions that were asked as part of this training and including it as basically frequently asked questions document in addition to the training manual and this training video. We'll all post them together. And it looks like we don't have any additional questions coming in. So I would like to thank everyone for attending today. And then I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks everyone. And as Allison said, please feel free to ask questions to SRC Reviews and look on our website later this week, early next week for a copy of the training manual and as well as this video you can rewatch. So thanks again for attending. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.